Welcome back, YouTubers, to my channel of an everyday life of an Aspie. If you're new, I'm Aspie. I'm all about creating mental health and awareness and sharing my life stories with suspicious syndrome and the like. So if you're into any of these videos that I'm sharing, be it advocacy, mentoring about mental health as well as autism, as well as bringing you guys on my journey with suspicious syndrome, be it if I'm going to be travelling or whatever it may be in the near future, smash that subscribe button to join me on the bandwagon, to be as part of my family, as well as turning on the notification bell so you don't miss any future events or what have you that is coming later today. So if you're new today, obviously at this point of time I am doing the 7 different drug types, but it will be broken down into a series. But in saying this, just to bear in mind also that I am researching it through the US kind of research that I've been doing, which is like being hard to try and find the right information, but later in the piece you'll see hopefully contact information in New Zealand for anyone that is concerned about their loved one or themselves, that they're drug using too much and they're dependent on certain form of drugs regardless what they are. And hopefully in saying this that we'll learn something along the way anyway. As well in saying this too, it's sad but knowing that drug abuse and drug dependency can start as a tender year age, or maybe for a young child as close to their teens or even earlier, leading up to adulthood, and sometimes by choice it's up to the individual if they want to break that addiction. So this one's part 2 of the series of the drug types, which is stimulants, and hopefully you'll learn something. So the very first question on the list: stimulants. Stimulants are often known for as psychostimulants as well, or colloquially as uppers, as an overarching term that covers many drugs, including the following: that increases the activity of the central nervous system and the body, drugs that are pleasurable and invigorating, or drugs that have sympathetic results, or sympathomimetic results, I should pronounce it as, sorry. Stimulants are widely used throughout the world as prescription medicines, however, as well as narcotics, as well as without a prescription, either illegally or illicitly, as performance enhancing or recreational drugs. Stimulants includes cocaine, methamphetamine, methylphenidate, nicotine, and MDMA, which is a real long name, better known as Ecstasy. Stimulants are known for many different names for themselves, as well as many other drug types, as I've shared before, that we all use every day. Stimulants are known as uppers, as I mentioned, and that it affects the central nervous system, causing the user at the point to feel as if they are really speeding up, hence the word or colloquial term uppers. The examples of stimulants, which most of these are likely to be described in different parts of the video that later on, are Ritalin, which is already done, Adderall, synthetic marijuana, cocaine, methamphetamine, ecstasy, and caffeine. When you take a small dose of the stimulant, however, you may feel euphoric, energetic, talkative, and mentally alert. There's this feeling as if your sight, sound, and touch senses are really sharp. All of a sudden you don't feel hungry or fatigued, so it's suppressing your appetite as well as, stopping you from sleeping. And then you'll notice that you've lost a lot of weight along the way. Your body temperature will begin to rise. Your heart will pump faster because it needs more blood and oxygen running through the body. And the heart rate will increase as well, and you can almost feel the blood in your veins. If you've taken a larger dose of the stimulants, then you may start acting bizarre and erratic, being a bit violent to your peers too, maybe. Stimulants change the way the brain works by changing the way the nerve cells communicate to one another with the neurotransmitters. Stimulants can cause a buildup of dopamine in the brain, which can make people who abuse stimulants feel intense pleasure and increased energy, which I clearly mentioned about dopamine and that in the very first video, which I'll link in the description as well as in the iCard for you. They can also make people feel anxious or paranoid. Stimulants also interfere with serotonin and block out the nerve impulses, which is the electrical impulses from the brain that are sending the chemical messages of your neurotransmitters. Stimulants are absorbed relatively quite fast when administered by smoking, ingesting, snorting, and intravenous use. However, the faster the absorption of stimulants in the system, the more intense and rapid the high that the user will feel. But the shorter the duration of action, however. For example, just to give you a clarification, when injecting some stimulants produced within 15 to 30 seconds, but it will all end after 5 to 15 minutes. If you decide to store the stimulants as an option, you'll feel the effects almost immediately, but here you will be feeling high for about the same amount of time, 15 to 30 minutes duration. Well, stimulants have varied half-lives. However, general effects of most stimulants will last for at least 1 to 2 hours depending on the dose, while later effects may last for several days on end, especially after binge use. How do stimulants work better? When it comes to dosing, single low doses of stimulants may improve mental and motor performance in people who are tired. On the other hand, it doesn't mean that stimulants necessarily enhances the performance of the normal active individuals. Stimulants may improve humans' ability when working on simple tasks, not complex. A perfect example for complex tasks maybe is driving. Doctors usually primarily prescribe the stimulants for patients with ADHD, hence Ritalin as a common one, as well as narcolepsy and asthma, as this opens up the breathing passages. Most studies done in the field of stimulants use are limited, however, by the low doses allowed. Though these dosing requirements result in better attention, but no effect at all on any cognitive processes, such as your learning. Stimulants can provide very powerful psychoactive effects. However, stimulants can also become addictive drugs of abuse. So when you start to notice initial tolerance to a euphoric high, this is a good time to eventually stop. Since most of the stimulants are also sold out on the streets, know that the dealers dilute them with inherent substances such as talcum powder or sugar. You need to be aware for the purity issue and your own safety. The side effects of stimulants to look out for when you're using in a conservative dose don't usually cause significant side effects in children. However, clinicians and parents should be alert for the following potential negative effects. Side effects really are sufficiently severe to require discontinuation of medications. Many are elevated by changes in time of the administration or dosage reduction. Common side effects, as I mentioned, is your appetite suppression. It's the most common side effect, affecting 50 to 60% of children. Although minor in most cases, growth should be monitored at least every 3 months early in the treatment. Significant decreases in weight gain can often be managed by giving medications with or after meals and by maximizing caloric intakes when children are off meds, such as breakfast, supper, and bedtime snacks. Sleep disturbances may occur in a small percentage of children but are typically transient. Sometimes children actually sleep better on this treatment, for they can finally turn off the off switch and go to sleep inside their brain. Parents give the medication too late in the day. Surely the stimulant effect will keep the child from going to sleep, but this is not always the case, as insomnia as the side effect. Abdominal pain has been reported in 30 to 40% of children. It seems more common in children who take the medications on an empty stomach and may improve with changes in time of administration relative to the meds. Headaches has been reported in 20 to 40%, as with the abdominal pain. This may improve when medication are given after meals than before. Stimulants and growth. Growth suppression sufficient to affect height growth as well as weight growth has been reported. This effect appears to be uncommon, may be transient, and in many cases seems to be subside after 2-3 years of therapy or when the stimulants has been discontinued of the use. In any event, children on stimulants should receive regular height and weight monitoring on occasion. The physician and family may need to decide which is worse: untreated ADHD or a relatively small, probably transient disturbance of growth related to medical tics. Nervous movements or apparent compulsive behaviours are actually reported more frequently in children with untreated ADHD and other behavioural problems than in those on the stimulants. Nevertheless, if parent reports noticeable worsening of existing tics or the compulsive behaviours or the onset of significant new behaviors, particularly complex or vocal tics or severe compulsions, the stimulant should be discontinued and or the patient referred to a behavioral pediatrician, child psychiatrist or neurologist. Reduction in the seizure threshold is a theoretical pharmacological effect of stimulants. Stimulants should be used with caution, like many other drug types that I'm sharing with you all, especially in children with non-seizure disorders. Children with symptoms suggesting absent seizures should have an ECG prior to initiating stimulant therapy. Paradoxical increases in agitation or anxiety-like symptoms occur most commonly in children with underlying, often undiagnosed mood or anxiety disorders. This paradoxical response is often quite unpleasant and typically occurs with the very first dose of the stimulants. The medication should be discontinued. Withdrawal or apathetic behaviors is occasionally reported. This is often an overinterpretation of normal behavior by a parent conditioned to the child's hyperactivity. Anxiety, paranoia, psychosis, high blood pressure or body temperature, I should say, depression, heart failure, stroke. Treatment of addiction to prescription stimulants such as methylphenidate and amphetamines is based on behavioral therapies proven effective for treating cocaine or methamphetamine addiction. At this time, there are no proven medications for the treatment of stimulant addiction. Antidepressants, however, on the other hand, may be used to manage the symptoms of depression that can accompany early abstinence from stimulants. Try to approach your loved one as calmly as possible, reserving any form of judgment. Be patient. If you suspect that a loved one is abusing a stimulant substance, you should proceed with caution and care. Approaching the situation without adequately planning yourself may harm rather than help the situation and your relationship. Rather than reacting too hastily, consider a thought out plan and make sure you understand how someone is suffering from a stimulant addiction, how they may react to your attempts to reach out to them. Someone that is abusing a substance or addicted to it will likely resist your attempts to point out the problem or change their behaviors. Drug abuse can in some cases change the brain of the user in many ways that can or may diminish self-control and judgment, which makes your task more complex, which more often or not. All too very often, conversations about getting help may turn into arguments, as your loved one as the addicted person have often long been frustrated by the inability of their loved one to stop and feel that they are choosing the drug over them. However, even if you are upset and frustrated, approaching your loved one while overwhelmed, try approaching them during periods of sobriety as well. Provide your love and support to them. Do not forever, as I said, be judging. Be patient with them. If you speak when the emotions are on the high, your message will be lost and your loved one will only absorb your anger or sadness or any other form of emotion that is on the high. Ask as many questions as you can, but there are the right way and the wrong way in answering these questions. People become defensive when they get told what to do and how to do it. Instead, use questions to gain the information about your loved one's stance and views on their stimulant use. Focus on the everyday positives. Speaking too much about drug use may turn any situation negative. By finding ways to emphasize positive traits and abilities for your loved one, you can encourage them to see more than drug use in their future. Be consistent. Decide on a stance early and behave accordingly. For example, if you are outlining consequences for drug use, be prepared to follow through with them. And also just seek out maybe if they do a great treatment of therapy of some kind, be it counselling or going cold turkey or what have you, be there as support. Don't forever leave their side when they're going to decide what's best for themselves. So this quickly ends a quick video based on stimulants. Hope you guys like this. Smash like if you did, comment below. Feel free to also share these videos around. For those of you who have dealt with certain drug types I mentioned, how did you manage to cope with it by being sober if you made that choice, and what sort of advice would you want to give to people that is watching? I would like to hear your guys' opinions on this too. So no further ado guys, thanks for watching. Do what love what you do. Until next time, Aspie signing out.